Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and had a fantastic weekend. Welcome back to Inkmatic, the home for personal finance. Today I want to talk about a possible companion app that can go alongside your brokerage apps such as Trading 212, Freetrade and Stake. And this app is essentially to help you with your research within a stock. And it's kind of like a simplified idea and help you speed up that process. So this app is pretty much geared to long-term investors who are looking for good quality stocks for the long run, and I think it is quite a good app. It's really easy to understand and it's really simplified as well, and it's fairly inexpensive, which we'll get into later in this video. Before we go any further, Genuine Impact did reach out to me before making this video, and just let you know guys that this video is purely my own opinion and what I think of the service and product itself. So let's fire up the app and dive into Genuine Impact. So let's dive straight into the discovery section of this app, and what I really like about this is it's essentially grouped into collections such as top quality, best value, greatest momentum, COVID beneficiaries, invest like Buffett, top in the UK, which are all kind of cool, the S&P 500, and then you've got funds as well, like top performers, most stable, cheapest fees, etc. I find this app quite good at discovering new stocks that I might not be aware of, and what I really like about it is it kind of groups them, well, kind of ranks them in terms of a certain metric. There are some shortfalls which we'll go into in a bit. So let's dive into one of these collections. So let's start off with looking at best value, and with that we can see that Prudential Financial, Power Corporation of Canada, Peugeot, Aviva and AXA are the top ones in terms of value. I personally am a big fan of Aviva, and it's good to see that it's ranked number 4 in this collection, but it is only looking at large cap and mega large cap. So if we change that and get rid of mega large cap and large cap and look at value overall, we can see that it has changed quite a bit. Personally, I've not heard of any of these companies as well, so it is interesting, especially like trying to find new stocks to invest in, and I think that is a pretty cool thing about this app, and it's quite unique, especially like, you know, it does compare it against other stocks in a certain collection and puts them in a certain order, which is kind of cool. So let's dive into what kind of analysis it does, and let's use Microsoft as an example, if I can spell. So with Microsoft, we can see that it is ranked at number 88 out of 5,875. So in terms of quality, it is actually a really good stock. In terms of value, not so much. If it's 4,948 out of 5,875, to me that will be quite an expensive stock at this current price. Momentum is, I'd probably say, around neutral at 1,123 out of 5,875. So with that being said, it's probably a neutral for momentum, quite expensive for value, and quality of the stock is really good at 88. Moving on to the checklist section, we can see that there are 3 metrics that this is based on, which is top, neutral and fail. What does this actually mean? So within the stock universe, it's kind of like broken down depending on how they rank. So top 20%, neutral 60, and fail, which is the bottom 20. So with Microsoft, we can see that it ranks top 20 for quality, momentum, historical return, liquidity, size, ESG, dividend cover. The neutral 60, which is historical growth, share price stability, expected returns, expected growth, accounting strength, and dividend yield. Where Microsoft falls in the bottom 20 is for value, as it's quite an expensive stock. So with that overall, we can see that the stock does look pretty good, and it only has one bit where it fails, and that's on value, because it is quite an expensive stock and it's saying it's very expensive. So when we scroll down, we can see whether it's low, medium or high, or some variation of that, and then you've got its ranking compared to the other stocks within Genuine Impact's stock universe. So for example, with profitability, it's very high and it's ranked at 124 out of Genuine Impact stock universe. So basically, yeah, it compares it against all the other stocks and puts them in rank. So you've got the same thing with financial strength, capital allocation, and then there's a detail section which shows you some charts as well, and with a scrubber thing as well that you can essentially scrub along. And I think it does that for over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Then moving on, you've got value as well, and then it goes from, I think it's cheap to, or very cheap to very expensive. So in Microsoft case, it is very expensive, but then it also says income statement, balance sheet, cash flow for the same thing, and it gives you that ranking against other stocks within Genuine Impact's stock universe. Then you've got momentum as well, revenue, earnings, and sentiment as well, which the momentum kind of factors in of those 3 metrics to give you that momentum overall factor. And if you want to know what that is, then it's got a breakdown over here on what the description is on how it's calculated. Then you've got peers, so similar companies to Microsoft, historical growth, historical return, and then, like, for example, you've got a Chevron here which gives you some additional information about that. Share price volatility, liquidity, size, stock beta, expected return, expected growth. ESG is quite an interesting one. I haven't really seen that much of it, and basically it's an environmental, social, governance, ESG criteria, and it's for those investors that are socially conscious and where their investments are going. So I think this is a really good bit of information that can be used, and it's ranked at number 4, so out of 5,000 and something, 5,000 plus. It is actually a really good stock for this metric. And you've got dividend cover and dividend yield, which are, well, dividend cover is high, and whereas dividend yield is medium. But what's interesting about dividends as well, this kind of brings it to its shortfalls, that it would be nice if it gave you the dividend yield and the dividend payments over the last 12 months, which would be really handy and really useful within this app. So I think that's something this app is missing, along with a stock price chart, so you can see the historical price of the stock, and it's also a good idea to give you some sort of perspective on how the stock has performed over the last few years, and a good idea of how much it's grown when you actually see the numbers. Sometimes it can be difficult to understand what the actual impact is or how much it's grown over a certain period if there are no numbers to put it into that perspective. So talking about funds as well, so if we quickly dive into funds, and if we hit the top performing ones and just have a quick idea of what the top performing funds are. So as you can see here, we've got Ark Web ProShares Ultra Pro, Ark Innovation ETF. So if we tap on the Ark Web, and you can see that the return is the best performing fund according to Genuine Impact. Risk is around 4,334 out of 4,675. So it is very risky, this fund. The fee, it's probably around neutral, I'd say, because it's halfway point. So yeah. And then you've got the checklist again, and it's a lot shorter with this. So you've got the return, total net assets change, liquidity, and year-to-date performance are all in the top. Is it 20% for this one? Yeah, so top 20%. Neutral is the fees, and where it falls, it's very risky. Scrolling further down, you've got the similar thing to the previous, similar thing to shares in the same thing. And what you've got here is country breakdown as well, asset classes, and top 10 holdings. So you can literally see how this fund is broken down in the top 10. So you've got Tesla, which accounts 10%, Square, etc., and so on. So it's good to get that information there, and it's quite easy to actually get that information. Again, what I would like to see here is the price, so you can put this into perspective. I know you can find it elsewhere, but it would be good to have it all in one place. Also, it would be good if you actually gave you the actual fee for the fund as well, which would also be nice. Where I see genuine impact adding value to your analysis and discovery, I would say that this app is really good for a few reasons. First of all, being that it can essentially rank certain stocks within a specific group, such as the S&P 500, large cap, small cap, etc., and put them in order of certain metrics such as value, momentum, or even the quality of the overall stock, which I think is really good, and it's kind of a different or unique approach to this. The second option is, for example, let's say you're very heavily invested into finance, but then you want to move into technology and start diversifying your portfolio. This app can really help you kind of bring those stocks to your attention essentially. And that way, this is how I would use it. I would then look at those companies and see how it's ranked up, and then essentially possibly create a short list and then dive into the fundamentals and look at some of the numbers that these companies do have. And that's the way I see myself using this app. I think it's great. It does simplify a lot of it, and it does make it a lot easier to grasp. What I would also like to see is probably like a comparison table or something like that between 2 or 3 different stocks, just to speed that process up would be great. Moving on to pricing, at the moment it's a tenner a year up until the 1st of October. I think they're planning to push up the prices, but I think for now, I think £10 a year is a fair price to ask for this offering. I'm going to test it out for a year and see how it works for my flow. If it works really well, then yeah, I will definitely renew it. But for now, I'm going to be testing it out for a year and see how it works. If you're interested, you can use the link in the description. So I think it is fair. What I would like to see throughout the year is possibly a comparison table between certain stocks that I choose. I think that would be a really key feature. Also including a chart with historical pricing, just to see and put that into context, dividend yield and the dividend amounts for the past year. So just all in one place. I would hope to see that they do include this. That's just my opinion. But yeah, if you're interested, links in the description. That's it, guys. See you in the next one.